Welcome to another edition of the NCBI Podcast. I'm June Tinsley, Head of Communications and Advocacy with NCBI. And today I'm joined by Gerard McHugh, who lives in Laois. Thanks very much, Gerard, for having a chat with me today.
No problem, June.
Good. I hope you're keeping well. And I suppose in the interest of our listeners, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Gerard McHugh. I moved down from Dublin when I was 12 to Laois. So technically originally a Dub, but now Laois, but would move out of Laois for love or money. I am 52 years old. I've had diabetes since I was 2, so almost 50 years of diabetes, which is the main cause of the blindness and everything else that goes along with that.
Yes.
I also had a stroke in 2018, again as a result of the diabetes, which has left me out of work. And I suppose then the side effects from that have affected other stuff as well.
And tell me, in terms of your sight loss, as you said, you've been living with diabetes for 50 years. So I'm guessing sight loss was a gradual thing over time?
Yeah, the left eye, the retina detached in 2017.
Okay.
And kind of progressively since that, now I'd say along with the stroke, it sped up the eye loss or the sight loss in the right eye.
Yes.
When I had the stroke, I could still drive, I could still see enough with the right eye, and it was grand, no problem, and all the rest. But as I was going through the hospital system after having the stroke, the eyesight was getting gradually worse. When I came out of the hospital first, I spent 4 months in the hospital.
Wow.
And when I came out of the hospital, I could still read the first couple of sheets on the eye charts and all that. Where currently now, if I put my finger across the phone, I can't see the finger across the phone.
Okay. So obviously it sounds as if since 2017, 2018, your life has been totally different to what it was prior to that.
Completely different, yeah.
And tell us in what kind of ways has it changed, or how has it made you feel about having such a drastic change?
It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. It's atrociously bad. But being a diabetic, you expect the worst anyway.
Yes.
Because a specialist once said to me, he says, being diabetic means that everything that the blood touches, it damages.
Okay.
So I've no sensation in my fingers, I've no sensation in my feet. And there are other, like the eyesight, the kidney function is down about 50%, and my arteries and blood vessels are down about 50% as well. So, it affects absolutely everything. But the eyesight then has destroyed everything else. I can't drive. I have a 9-year-old daughter and a 27-year-old daughter, and I can't go out to see them. Can't call out to see them whenever I want.
Yes.
Or even in relation to picking up Maeve, the youngest one, it's I have to rely on my father, who's 75, to bring me to collect her.
Yeah, exactly. And that's obviously very hard for all concerned, because you want to be able to be there for Maeve and your other daughter. I totally understand that. And I suppose you're obviously lack of driving and it impacts on your independence, essentially.
Totally, yeah.
And what would you say are kind of some of the other biggest challenges that you've had as your sight has deteriorated?
Well, I suppose kind of everything has deteriorated, like, and in the sense of like even where I used to be able to cook myself, I wasn't a great cook, but I could cook.
Yes.
You know, say browning mince or something like that. I had to get somebody out to time me to do it, so I know when the meat was actually browned properly, like.
Yes.
Things like that. So you have to rely on timing everything. Like I was here one day cooking sausages for Maeve, like, and I says, I should recognize when they're pink, they're bright. I should recognize when they're gone brown, like, no problem. So threw them onto the pan and no hassle, and fried away and everything else, and then threw them up to Maeve. And Maeve looked at me and says, Daddy, they're black. So you're kind of going, I need to be able to time them or do something else with them other than that. So I got an air fryer and learned how to time everything. But that also involves somebody else being here to say, yeah, they're done.
Yes, exactly.
So that you know how long it takes, like, and all that kind of stuff. Like, the transport issue was huge because my big interest in life was motorbikes, like.
Okay.
And I can no longer ride a motorbike, good, bad, or indifferent, like.
Yeah.
And as a result of the stroke, I get these kind of like weaknesses or wobbles, as I call them, like. And I could be walking, or I could be sitting, or I could be standing, or I could be doing anything. And next thing, the leg could go out from under me, and I'd fall. So if I imagine getting up in the back of a motorbike and that happening, and next thing you'd knock two people off the bike, like.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so that's gone as well, like. And where my oldest daughter, Sarah, she would have been with me when she was 16, 17 and all that kind of crack, like. And I would have had her on the back of the bike. And it's something I'm going to miss out on with Maeve. I'll never be able to do that for her, like.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I can understand that one, because you obviously want to share and enjoy those same experiences, and the passion for motorbiking has had to change significantly, which is it's a total shame. And I suppose one of the things that has got you involved in our access LAN is, as you mentioned, kind of transport and stuff. And what do you think would be the single biggest positive change for people who are blind or vision impaired in that area?
Now, I live out in the sticks, out in the countryside, and the closest area to me where I could get a bus would be maybe a mile away from me. So you can imagine me now trying to walk down that far and maybe fall with huge big tractors flying past you and getting squished by one of them, like. So that wouldn't be a good plan, like.
No.
I reckon if we can get one of these self-drive cars, they'd be great, like.
Yeah, well, certainly would maximize independence, definitely.
Yeah. But I suppose because I live out in the country, I'm completely and totally reliant on somebody else to drive me. Now, if there was some sort of a system where one of these care workers or caregiving companies or whatever it is could facilitate you in something along those lines, great. That would be brilliant, like.
Yeah, exactly.
But currently, I'm not sure if that exists, or if it does exist, I haven't heard about it. Like I'm relatively new to the blindness thing, like. So I don't know everything that's out there.
Yeah, true. And I suppose that's one of the benefits of being connected with either the Access LAN or even general kind of NCBI services. You can learn from others and connect with others to kind of hear the different tips and tricks of people who have.
Yeah. Well, I'm involved with the check-in and chat, which is absolutely fantastic. Like, you can talk about absolutely anything, or even if you just want to go on and have a rant about something or whatever it is, they're all in the same boat, and there's no problem. They're a great crew of people, like. And I think that's open to everybody, like. So it's not just, you know, people who aren't with the NCBI. I think you have to be on the NCBI to get involved, get the email to let you know what's on and whatever else. Like, now maybe that should be more widespread. Like,
yeah, I mean, it is up on it is up on our website for people to join on a weekly basis. And as you said, having spoken to a number of the regulars on that, it's basically a friendship group really that has developed.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, and I suppose then through COVID and all that, that's why that has developed. Like, whereas, you know, if it was going on now like that, I don't know what was happening prior COVID, because realistically, I wasn't in the service. Like, like, you know, if there was something going on in Portlaoise, how do I get to Portlaoise?
And as you say, to do that, you'd have to rely on...
I have to rely on somebody else to bring me in and all that kind of crack. Like,
yeah. And do you feel when you're out and about in Portlaoise or any other town that it is very inaccessible, or what's your experience of kind of just even navigating streets and getting out and about?
Generally speaking, I have my father and my mother with me, so generally I kind of cling on to one of them and hold the elbow, and they guide me around, so it's not too bad. Like,
okay.
You know, I remember I was up at a show up in Galway. No, a show, Christmas lighting, like putting on the lights in Tuam or someplace like that. Like, I was up with friends, like, and we happened to go out to where the thing was going on, and we said we'd go get a bit of food and whatever else. And there was a friend of ours had a stall in one of the markets at it and selling stuff, like, and so we said we'd go back to where she had the stall, and then we'd go back out onto the street. And like that, the street had, because it was time for lighting up the lights, I was walking down through the street holding on to the girl I was holding, my accompaniment, the girl that was helping me through the street, like.
Yeah.
And I was walking along with my stick, but of course the cane was getting stuck in everything, like street signs and people walking up along the road, and because the place was so crowded, like. But then I got stuck in something else, which I thought was just a sign outside the coffee shop, like.
Yes.
Next thing I turned down, I says, "What am I stuck in?" Like, and this woman said, "It's a child." I was going, "Oh God, sorry about that." Like, you know, what could you do? Like, you couldn't see them, like.
Yeah, and I'm sure
needless to say, we got out of there quickly after that, like.
Well, I'm sure it wasn't the first or the last case of that happening.
Oh, probably not. No.
Definitely not. I'm sure. And tell me, Gerard, in terms of just, do you feel you had to reconfigure your home in the last number of years to make it more suitable to your needs when your sight loss occurred and the stroke happened? And how has that worked out for you?
Yeah, definitely have to change a few things. Like, I mean, the bump-ons are on nearly everything that's mechanically operated, like the microwave and the oven and all that kind of stuff. Like, now, and since that, I actually got myself one of these ovens that you can connect to the phone, like.
Oh, okay.
And while it's great and all the rest, I still haven't figured it out, like. So it's a little touch of, "Hey, Maeve, is that done? Is that right? Is that the length of time? Is that the correct temperature?" And blah 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 blah, like, and all that kind of stuff. So while the technology is great, I was never technologically minded prior to that. I could stand beside iron and break iron without even touching it, like. So technology myself never got on, like. But in saying that, the Daniel Dunn in the NCBI, the technical team in Portlaoise, like,
yes,
he's been fantastic in relation to the likes of the phone, setting up the phone for me and helping me with all that kind of stuff, like remembering passwords and all that kind of crack, like. Now, I have to admit that the NCBI team in Portlaoise and Offaly, Nicola McHugh, Aileen Ahern, who did the white stick training with me, like,
yes,
fantastic team, like, great patience on their part, like.
Great.
Very, very understanding, like.
And
but in relation to the house itself, like, I mean, I suppose with the stroke symptoms and stuff like that, like, I know I'm kind of harping on about the stroke symptoms, but they're now part and parcel of who I am, like, so I kind of have to, like, but the blindness and the stroke symptoms, I've and because I'm diabetic, I'm all going well. I won't end up having to get bits and pieces of me amputated because of diabetes, like.
Yeah.
So I have to get the house as wheelchair friendly as I can now, while I can still see a little bit.
I understand. Yeah, yeah.
So rather than down the line, all of a sudden having no feet or no legs or no whatever it is, I want to have the house ready for that. So I have to put on an extension, put it on a wet room and possibly a bedroom downstairs, or an elevator to go up and down the stairs or whatever it is, like.
Yes.
But
yes.
to do that, because I'm now currently unemployed, because I'm on the blind, the invalidity pension, I'm not going to get a mortgage.
Yeah, yeah.
To agree, and as you know yourself, the price of everything has gone shot through the roof, like.
It definitely has, yeah. And then,
you know,
scarcity of supplies and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
And all that, yeah. But even at that, like, the grant that the council give is 30,000, like. And at current building prices, a minimum size for a bedroom, a wheelchair accessible bedroom, is 4x4, which is 16 square meters. And rough guide on a wet room for that is about 5 square meters. Like, that's 20, 30, 20, 21 square meters. And at the current prices, that's about €42,000 just to put on that part, like.
Okay, yes.
So you then have to come up with the rest of it, like. And where am I going to get a mortgage, like?
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. Yeah, exactly.
Now, that doesn't include all the work that you have to do inside the house. So I have to dig up floors to level them out, and put in extra stuff to level them out, rewire the house, so that it's all correct wheelchair accessible heights and all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge amount of extra work that you have to do in the house as well.
And I suppose you're trying to literally future-proof it now.
Yeah, that's that. But that's what you have to do. But how am I going to do that, like?
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, the local authority grants aren't anyway sufficient.
No. And I'll give you one more. When I was on illness benefit, I was also entitled to the blind pension. Now, the blind pension is a welfare, a means tested payment, like.
Yes.
Which is grand, no problem. So after the 2 years of that was up, I had to move from the illness benefit to the invalidity pension. Okay, so that was a raise of £5 from the illness benefit to the invalidity pension, like.
Yeah.
But because I was on the illness benefit, I could get the blind pension, and that was means tested. So I was getting 70 or 80 quid a week from the blind pension, along with the other payment, like. Well, that was grand, no problem. So the raise of €5 made me lose the 70 or 80 quid that I had from the blind pension, because I can't get the blind pension and the invalidity pension together.
And yet you were forced to move over.
Yeah, well, you had no choice. Once the illness benefit is gone after 2 years, it's gone.
Okay.
So you'd love to be asking the government, like, what's the story with that? How can I get that money back? And then the other side of that, now I have a very small work pension, like, but because I have the work pension, I now can't get the blind welfare allowance, like, which is 60 quid a week, like.
So you're trapped from every angle.
Yeah, and then along with all of that, you still have the VHI because of diabetes. You still have the mortgage that was there previously, like, so that's still there. You have all the usual bills. Now, I'm not giving out. Everybody has the usual bills, like. But it's in the position where you're no longer working. You're now on the lowest rate of pay that you can get on, within reason. Now, I know I'm not badly stuck because I have my work pension, like, but at the same time, it is still only a small work pension, like.
Yeah, and you're still young, so I mean, you're going to live on
52,
that.
like.
Yeah, exactly. You've decades ahead of you. Yeah, no, I can understand the challenge and frustration there, Gerard, definitely.
Yeah.
And I suppose, thank you for your input into our pre-budget submission to try and flag these concerns at how bonkers the social welfare system can be at times.
That's just crazy. But then you see what they're looking at is they're looking at the fact that you have your primary payment, which is your invalidity pension. That's your primary payment. Okay, it's slightly better than the blind pension in the respects of what it is like.
Yeah.
But because you can't get the two of them, you can't get the two payments, like, even though one is means tested, like,
yeah,
you can't get the second one because you're out. You have one primary payment and that's it. End the story, like. And you're kind of going,
it's the inflexibility.
Fair enough, like.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can totally understand that inflexibility, and I said we'll certainly continue to raise that at because it is pushing people into financial challenges, and when you're against a backdrop of now rising prices and all that kind of stuff, it certainly is an issue that needs to be raised time and time again with government.
But like, wouldn't you think now that the likes of the blind welfare allowance should be given straight away to anybody who's registered blind?
And that's the one through the HSE, isn't it? The blind
welfare. HSE, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're registered blind. Well, it's supposed to be for your welfare. It's a blind welfare allowance. It's supposed to be there for you. But because you have something else, no, you can't get that. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's also kind of just bonkers how one department just doesn't talk to the other department, because if it was anyway joined up, it would be focused on the needs of the person as opposed to just the very inflexible rules that apply, because people's lives don't necessarily fit the boxes that they provide, which is frustrating. And I suppose, Gerard, just to ask you one final question, what would be the one thing that you would say to someone who's beginning their life now, having received a diagnosis of a sight loss condition?
So someone like myself?
Yeah, someone like yourself who's now received a diagnosis that they have some eye condition where their vision will deteriorate, and what one piece of advice or information would you give them as they're adapting and adjusting to this news?
I probably have a few bits of advice. One is be patient with the people who are trying to help you.
Yeah.
Two is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great.
Three is try to take your anger out on anything bar the people who are trying to help you. So get a boxing bag or something to take your anger out on other than people around you, like. Because that doesn't help.
No, but I can understand it at a very kind of human level. The frustration builds up, and
like that, don't trust the system or politicians. They're all lying to you.
But it's in our collectively, I feel we do need to kind of make sure that the experiences of people who are blind or vision impaired need to be heard by politicians, because the system is inflexible in many respects, and a lot of it is down to lack of understanding or awareness, or
but you see what they're doing is they're following the rules that have been put down previous to them, like. But again, they're not listening to the people who put them in place, like.
Yeah, or the impact those old rules are now having.
Exactly. Yeah.
A new life.
Now, what another thing I'd say is you'd often hear about these politicians who say, I could live on the dole money or the invalidity pension money for blah blah. I'll do it for a week and no hassle. Anybody can survive on 250 or 40, 30 quid a week, no problem at all. Come out to my house and do it for 6 months and wear a blindfold for the 6 months, like. Then see how you're going. And then also along with that, pay out your mortgage, pay out your blah, 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 pay out whatever it is you have to pay out, and then see how you survive, like.
And also
give the politicians a blindfold and say, now walk that street there and don't bump into them, like.
Yeah, and take their cars away from them.
Yeah.
And the reality check that would be having to rely on friends and family or public transport.
A little touch of the walk in my shoes, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the blindfold, buddy. Try it on. See how you get on, like.
Yeah. I know was it the Irish Wheelchair Association did that last year, and the politicians that participated in it certainly had. Some were commended for trying it, and others got a fair bit of backlash for giving the sensation that it was quite tokenistic. So
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, do something for a week. Yeah, anybody can do it for a week. There's no problem at all. Like, but do it for 6 months and see how you go. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Gerard, I'll let you go. Thank you for having a chat with me. If any of our listeners do want to avail of NCBI services, as always, details are available on our website, ncbi.ie, or alternatively, you can call the info line 1-800-911-250. But for now, Gerard, I would just like to say thank you very much for having a chat, and I wish you and your daughters all the best, and best of luck in everything that you do.
Lovely stuff. Thanks very much, June. Chat
Thank
to you
you
again.